the Good Brothers, the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Champions, team with the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. They'll be led by Don Callis to take on Rich Swann, the Impact World Champion, of course, and the Motor City Machine Guns. And Don, we also have some breaking news before we get to the meat of this, the Hard to Kill celebration. Celebration is back. Hard to Kill celebration live Saturday the 16th in the afternoon. It all gets started at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It'll run 2 hours. Limited attendance, guys. It'll be on Zoom. It'll be virtual, just like we did at Slammiversary, but limited attendance. And Don, I understand that you are going to grace everyone with your presence on the Hard to Kill celebration. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think it's the time of year where we all look to see what we can do to help others and to be, I guess, charitable would be a word. So myself and my good friends, my good brothers, are going to be there. So looking forward to it. Always nice to interact with the fans.
So you're bringing Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows to Celebration? That's some breaking news.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking it would be pretty cool. I mean, those guys are fun. I mean, it's you know, we would welcome. You're going to be there, right, Josh? You're hosting.
Of course.
Yeah, I think I had them at Let's Go Roast Josh Matthews in front of a lot of people. So it was pretty
I'm
good.
wearing my Doc Gallows t-shirt. Do you see that?
What a mark.
So, Don, it looks to me as if you may have commandeered another bus. Are you on a luxury bus right now?
Yeah, I'm here in Jacksonville for AEW, and this is the what they call a celebrity residence. It's a giant celebrity like they use on a movie set, you know, for Brad Pitt or something. I think Brad Pitt had this one on his last movie, so it's pretty cool. It has a hot tub. It has a little gymnasium. It's about 2,500 square feet. So it's raining outside here in Jacksonville. So very happy to be inside and relaxing here. I'm going to get a massage in a little while, and you know, things are busy. I've been on the phone all day dealing with various things, and then also been doing a lot of media the last number of days too. So happy to be here with you guys. So.
Well, this is sort of like a one-stop shop for all members of the media. They get to come on, ask you a question, interact, and we're going to get right to it right now. This is, of course, Press Pass with Impact Executive Vice President Don Callis. Don, first up, we're going to go to our good buddy Najir Chambers from Big Gold Belt Media. Hey, Najir, how are you, my friend?
Good question.
Remember, guys, when you get in, unmute yourselves and share the video. There he is.
There he is,
buddy.
What's up,
Hey,
buddy?
Josh. How you doing today, Josh?
Very good.
All right, Don. So quickly, I mean, been really high on Rich Swann over the last few months with everything Rich had to go through, and you quickly bring in your buddy Kenny, and you kind of almost discredit all of Rich Swann's hard work that he's been putting in his company over the last few, especially the last few months, for over the last 2 years.
I guess, and I guess we're shooting here, so let's get right into it. I guess then what the question that you might ask, or one might ask, and thank you for your question, is who is responsible for overseeing the direction of Impact Wrestling on that side of things? Who is, you know, has been referred to as the quote unquote golden booker? And you're talking to him right now. So if people are happy with how Rich Swann has been promoted and the opportunities he's been afforded, then people, including Rich Swann, if he wants, can thank Don Callis. I've been a big Rich Swann guy all along. I think Rich Swann is not just a great athlete, because we are in a sport that has many great athletes. What to me sets Rich Swann apart is his incredible ability to overcome, to continue, to push past the limits. We saw that when he, you know, wrestled, I think, 3 different people, Josh, last year, you know, in a number one contender kind of gauntlet situation. So I'm a big fan of Rich Swann. I'm a big fan of the Motor City Machine Guns. I'm a big fan of Josh Alexander. I'm a big fan of Ace Austin. I'm a big fan of many people. Many people, you know, if they were sending out Christmas cards, might send a card to Don Callis and say, thank you very much for what you did for me. Ace Austin sends me a card every year, by the way. But I'm not in this for accolades or for, you know, people patting me on the back. But I am a big fan of the truth. And the truth is that Rich Swann is great. Kenny Omega is next level. Kenny Omega is the number one wrestler on the planet. And I've said it before, it's very controversial. Don't care, it's the truth. Number two is not close. Kenny Omega at 50% is the best wrestler on the planet. At 100%, and then reunited with family, with the invisible hand, if you will, Kenny Omega is truly next level. And a lot of people don't like this kind of truth telling that I'm doing since Kenny and I have been together. But the reality is that when you're operating on a higher plane of consciousness, you stop worrying about what others think and say about you. Kenny and I are next level. I said it before, comparing the way Kenny and I think towards against everyone else in pro wrestling, to make that comparison is like comparing an insect to the Dalai Lama in terms of intellectual capacity. So we're next level, and that's why people never see the things we do coming. And so that's going to continue. I expect a great, I mean, I would gladly buy a ticket to see Rich Swann and Kenny Omega in the same ring. And we're going to see that. And I think that's wonderful. And, you know, all the fans who dream small and their lives revolve around which wrestler could face which wrestler in which video game or whatever reality these folks are living in, you're getting to see your dream. And you can thank Don Callis.
Thank you for Christmas early.
Major, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And
thank
always
you.
What a nice guy.
Support.
I like that. He's a nice guy. Maybe he could replace you, Josh, because you get a lot. I've noticed that you get a lot of heat online about whenever you're in front of a camera. And so I think we could also use this as an opportunity. I see we've got someone from Inside the Ropes. I think this could be like a rolling audition to replace Josh Matthews.
I think it's a great idea. Maybe Gary Cassidy from Inside the Ropes could take over Press Pass right now and I can go carry about my day.
I'm not sure I can take over that mantle, but I'll try and ask a good question. That might be a good start, I think. So thanks for taking the time.
Wait a minute. You didn't tell me we're going to get someone with an Irish accent.
Scottish, but close enough.
Sorry.
Oh, good. Thank you for taking the time. So I want to ask, obviously, you know, we're seeing the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega wrestling an Impact alongside a couple of familiar faces and the Good Brothers. They recently told me how they're hoping to wrestle in New Japan very soon and how good it is to have Impact, AEW, and New Japan all being friendly was the word they used. We've seen Chris Bay in New Japan. I want to ask, how open is the wrestling world now? And might we see some New Japan involvement in this current storyline and potentially a Bullet Club reunion of sorts with Kenny Omega, Good Brothers, and whoever else appearing across all three promotions?
Wow, that's a lot of stuff there. You asked the hard questions, Gary. I like that. And I apologize for mixing up Ireland and Scotland. My maternal grandparents were actually from Scotland, so there you go. So I guess what I would say is the wrestling paradigm is that companies don't get along, and everyone always tries to do it from the bottom up. They say, "Hey, let's have a meeting. Let's talk about working together." That never works. It doesn't. You know, there's a famous quote. Someone said to me one time, they said, you know, Don, you gave me the power to do this. This is someone who worked for me. And I said, well, if I did give you power, then you've got nothing. Because real power is something you take. You take from someone. It doesn't work grassroots, bottom up. It's top down. It's elitist. It's a hierarchy. It's higher level thinking. In other words, the reason why you're seeing these barriers being broken down today is not because, Don Callis went and had a meeting, or Scott D'Amore had a meeting, or someone had a meeting. The real reason why this is happening is because Kenny Omega and Don Callis are in such a powerful position right now that we literally can do whatever we want. We can write our own ticket. Someone asked about Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore is one of my best friends. Brilliant guy. He and I are a great team and complement each other very well. Someone said, "Oh, is Scott upset?" Well, Scott's a smart guy. He's not an idiot. Of course he's not upset. Would he have liked it if I'd told him about it? Maybe. That's an ego thing. But at the end of the day, Scott D'Amore sees Kenny Omega and Don Callis as the hottest thing in pro wrestling right now in this business. And he goes, "Thank you," because he leaves his ego out of it. So you see, I operate from a position of power. There's a reason why I play the long game and wait. I could have got a meeting with whoever in the wrestling business. Let's work together. I'm the executive vice president of Impact Wrestling. I could get that meeting, but I take power. I don't negotiate it.
Excellent. Well, I, like everyone else, am very excited to see what's next. So thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
For joining us, Bill Pritchett from WrestleZone.com will join us next. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hey, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Hey, Bill.
Hey. So you opened up the call talking about people thanking you. Somebody who also appreciates gratitude is someone you know very well, Chris Jericho. And I know this is really in its infancy, but are there any plans, or do you hope to maybe do something on air with Chris while you're figuring this out, or just, you know, could we see you two on screen sometime soon?
You know, I've always been a guy, Bill, that I have a very small group of people that I consider my friends. Chris Jericho and I have been friends for 30 years. He's my oldest and closest friend in this business. And Chris and we talk business because Chris is brilliant. He really is brilliant. And I think Chris Jericho may go down as the greatest all-around performer and entertainer in the history of the business. And I think Kenny Omega will go down as the greatest wrestler in the history of the business. And I think I will go down as the greatest revolutionary, high-level thinker in the history of the business. That's three guys from Winnipeg, so that's pretty cool. So just as I did in 2017-18 with New Japan Pro Wrestling, when I put together the match that changed the entire wrestling business, my idea, my execution, Jericho versus Omega at the Dome, the match that Tony Khan said made him think, wow, I think something could happen with pro wrestling. We gave birth to AEW with that match. In the mind of the invisible hand Don Callis, we got that. And I included my friend Chris Jericho in that idea, not just because Chris Jericho made it work. Chris Jericho is a massive star, but also because he's my friend. So now as I find myself as the most talked about non-wrestling person in the business, and Kenny Omega is the most talked about wrestler, of course, we would both be open to helping Chris out by, having him in a situation where he could benefit from what Kenny and I are doing right now, because that's what Don Callis does for his friends and family.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it as always, and appreciate you joining us.
I just got to say, Josh, that I kind of see where some of these questions are kind of trying to set something up, or they're trying to lead me in a certain way. And, I think maybe, I don't know if it's you or Ross that are supposed to be vetting some of these media questions, but, if anybody thinks they're going to pit me against one of my best friends, my closest friend in the business, with a media question, I'm not going to play that game, but I'm just putting that out there. So with that, let's go to the next question.
Yeah, Ross was supposed to do that. I don't think that he did. Next up is Danny from Wrestling Travel. Danny, thanks for joining us. What's your question?
Hey, Danny.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, Don. Well, first and foremost, with everything that's going on at this moment, we all want to know exactly where your loyalty sort of truly lies at the moment. Is it with Impact Wrestling? Is it with Kenny, or is there something else, obviously, much more than that? And I do have a second question as well. How difficult was it to plan, to piece together the obviously the relationship that's going on at the moment between Impact and AEW to enter into this?
I'll answer your question in reverse order. To answer your second question first, there is no relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling. There is a relationship, a family relationship between Don Callis and Kenny Omega, and there is a power dynamic. Kenny Omega and Don Callis have power in AEW because Kenny Omega is the AEW World Champion, the greatest wrestler in the history of the business. Don Callis and Kenny Omega have power in Impact Wrestling because when we show up, as we did a week and a half ago or a little less than that, more eyeballs viewed Impact Wrestling, and Josh, you can attest to this, than in the history of my tenure there, certainly, and of the company. No one's ever talked about either company in the context that they have. The business has changed. We've changed it. Kenny Omega and I have changed it. AEW got its highest rating ever with Kenny and I on that program with the AEW World Championship. Impact, the same thing. So we're changing the way everyone thinks about pro wrestling. So there is no relationship. What there is power, and what there is a higher level purpose that people have a hard time keeping up with. To answer your first question, where do my loyalties lie? My loyalties don't lie to companies or things or money or position. I am true to myself. So in other words, I came up in the business, as a lot of us did as wrestlers, worrying about what other people thought of me. I remember, 5 years ago looking on social media, what are people saying about so-and-so? I really don't care. It doesn't matter, because as long as I'm happy with myself and I'm true to my higher purpose, then none of this other stuff really matters to me. Kenny Omega is my family. At the end of the day, Kenny Omega and I have been planning this, not for weeks, not for months, but for years. And we have an unbelievable ability to play the long game and to watch a plan roll out the way it should, not to rush. As I've said before, those of you who thought I came back to be a color commentator for New Japan with Kevin Kelly, that was my purpose. Lots of joke. That was all part of the plan. The plan that you're seeing now. You are living. A lot of things have happened this year in the world. You are living history right now. Kenny Omega and I changed history 3 years ago at the Tokyo Dome. We changed it again a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite and on Impact Wrestling. My loyalty is to myself, period. Don't care what anyone else thinks. I am, and I say this not to put myself over. I will just say, instead of me saying my opinion, I will give you direct quotes from high-level people in this business. Don Callis is the most forward-thinking, revolutionary intellectual in the history of the wrestling business. So you can take your Eddie Grahams, God bless him. You can take your Bill Watts. You can take your Paul Heymans. You can take all the people you think are smart and strategic. And those people are insects compared to an intellectual giant, compared to a person who thinks on a higher level like I do. You can call me a manipulative carny. You can call me all the things people have been saying. The bottom line is, people say he went from obscurity. He hadn't even been on Impact Wrestling. And now he and Kenny Omega are the talk of the industry. So take your Eddie Grahams, take your Paul Heymans. You can have them. Doesn't matter. Don Callis is smarter than all of them and more successful.
Danny, thank you very much for your
Thanks, Danny.
time today and your question. Really appreciate it. Now,
those were good. Those were good questions. I like those questions.
I took over the vetting process.
No one believes that.
Jim from the Miami Herald. Hey, Jim, how are you today?
Hey, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Hey,
I'm
Jim, how
curious
you doing,
because
buddy?
Don, you mentioned, hey, I'm doing good, thank you. Enjoy everything y'all are doing. So, hey, you mentioned Eddie Graham, and I remember back in the day, NWA, WWF would do these super shows, which were just incredible. And I'm wondering your thoughts of, might we see a super show down the line, whether it's Impact with AEW or AAA and New Japan Pro Wrestling all together? Is that something that might be in the works? And then my other question, Don, is what are your thoughts from a creative standpoint on the Tony Khan, Tony Schiavone paid ads during Impact Wrestling on Access TV? And thank you.
Well, let me answer yours in reverse order as well. I think those ads are great. Listen, Tony Khan, here's what people say, oh, you don't like Tony Khan. Not true. I think this is what I think about Tony. I think Tony is a very nice person. I think Tony has a good heart. I think Tony is a brilliant businessman and strategist. I think Tony is unfortunately getting a bad rap right now because unfortunately with all of his skills, with me, he was unfortunately a side product of higher level thinking and long-term planning and execution. So as I said before, and Tony knows this, he owns multiple major sports teams. Sometimes you run up against a juggernaut. You run up against a team that just has a once in a lifetime quarterback, as an example, or in a soccer parlance, a once in a lifetime striker. And you take an L. And Tony took an L. And I would encourage Tony to say, you know what? A lot of people lost to Muhammad Ali. Didn't mean they were bad boxers. Some of them were great boxers. Tony Khan's a great guy, smart guy, successful, obviously. But Tony Khan's success is measured in ratings and dollars. My success is measured in rewriting history. And those are two very different things. It's really apples and oranges. So I think his ads are great. I think Tony is a tremendous, tremendous personality. And I would like to see more of Tony Khan on Impact Wrestling. I would like to interact with Tony more if possible, because I think there's a lot that I can teach Tony Khan as a guy who had the balls, pardon the parlance, to put his money where his mouth is and try to change the business in the way that Kenny Omega and Don Callis did. I think there's a lot of lessons that Tony Khan could learn. He learned one a couple of weeks ago, and I said it on his own show. Welcome to the wrestling business, kid. We all learn our lessons. Some of us have to learn them the hard way. You talk about super shows, and I'm a big fan of your hometown, sir, and I think that, I've actually read some of your stuff. I think you do a great job. So this isn't meant to be disrespectful, but I think that you and the fans who talk about super shows and companies working together, you're dreaming small. Those are inconsequential to me. I do not care about the success of 5 different companies working together. I really don't care. I'm concerned about doing things that you haven't thought of, doing things that you didn't dream were possible. I'm not going to sit here and expose those right now, but I'll leave it for someone else who, operates in logistics and sycophantic ass kissing to put together a multi-company show, because frankly, I could care less. No offense to you at all. It's a good question.
No offense taken. Hey, thank you, Don. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, Dr. Ross and Josh. Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Is that
Jim. Appreciate it.
Is that one of Dr. Ross's patients? That's I didn't know we had him.
Yeah, I've got an appointment next week. Yes.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. Really appreciate your time and questions this afternoon. Don't forget, guys, you can register now for the Hard to Kill celebration. Again, it's limited engagement. So head on over to impactwrestling.com as soon as we're wrapped up here, or go second screen, register, and join us on the 16th at the Hard to Kill celebration. Next up, we're going to Dane from Hooked on Wrestling. And I've been asked, all members of the media, with the time we have remaining, and the amount of questions that we have, that we're asking you guys to please stick to just one question, please, and thank you. Go ahead, Dane.
Cool. Thank you very much. Hi, Don. I just wanted to ask, with a few months ago, your announcement or the announcement from Impact that you were partnering up with Premier Sports, and now you're well covered new partnership with Kenny as well. Do you have like an ideal next step in maybe like the success for Impact? Obviously, your partnership with Kenny's already brought in a lot of viewers. So I don't know, do you have any idea of what might come next?
Well, I guess the question really is for everyone, how does one measure success? You know, the simplistic approach that people like Josh, no offense, Josh, operate under is ratings. It's eyeballs, it's money. Those are things that really don't interest me. I'm not interested in what someone writes in Variety magazine tomorrow about what my rating is or what my performance. I'm concerned about what small children are being taught in the history books 50 years from now about what Don Callis did, about how Don Callis changed the industry more than anyone in the history. So I love Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling is a great company. Scott D'Amore and I, it's a labor of love for us, and we work together great. Do we get along perfectly all the time? Nobody does. That's a relationship. But Scott and I work very hard. We take a lot of pride in Impact Wrestling. I've just moved on from the traditional, trite, meanderings of ratings and numbers and money. I don't care about that stuff, because ultimately you get a good rating this week. Next week, do they remember it, Josh? Probably not. They forgot it. They moved on to something else. So what I want is to be written in stone in the history books. And that's exactly what I am planning. And that's exactly what I have done, not once, but twice.
Cool.
Dane,
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Thanks, Dane. Appreciate your support each and every
Dane,
week.
good job, buddy.
And the next
Thank you.
person on our list is Michael Morales from Lucha Libre Online. Michael, thanks for joining us this week on Press Pass. What's your question for Don Callis?
Hello, give me a moment until I can plug in. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Hope everyone is doing well. Mr. Callis, I wanted to ask you regarding the creative process on AEW and Impact Wrestling. So we've been seeing you doing some incredible work at both companies at this point. What's the principal difference of working in the creative part of Impact Wrestling and being backstage and seeing the creative process of AEW?
Well, again, I think we're getting in. I'd like to say hi to all of the fans out there of Lucha Libre. And I would like to say, soy revolucionaria. And you know what that means if you're one of my Spanish-speaking friends. I would say this. I'm about as interested in the creative process of different companies and how these companies run as I'm interested in watching a fly slowly die on my window. It doesn't even, I think of that like a thing, like a bottle cap on the ground or a piece of lint on my jacket. It doesn't even register to me. However, people get to where they go, and people talk about writers and creative processes and all these different companies. And to me, it's ridiculous. Nothing about Kenny Omega and Don Callis was written or booked or created. It just was. We're just being ourselves. There's probably a lesson there for people. But the reality is that without all of the quote unquote infrastructure that you're referring to, Kenny Omega and Don Callis rewrote history and became the most talked about pairing in the business in a long time. Everyone likes to listen to Dave Meltzer. One of the guys people listen to, Brian Alvarez, Mike Johnson. And I've heard lots of those guys say, this is the greatest angle in pro wrestling. Guess what, guys? Get out of your shoebox. This isn't an angle. This is life. This is history. But we all think very small, and that's unfortunate. But I don't really care if I can change the way people think, because I'm not doing this for fans. I'm not doing this for a company. I'm doing this for history. So you can come along for a ride. They say the winners get to write the history. And by any account, Kenny Omega and Don Callis are the winners here today. We were 3 years ago when we changed the business with the Tokyo Dome. And we are right at this moment right now. And I am fully in this moment. And we're going to continue to shock the world like we did on Impact Wrestling last night. People said, oh, Don and Kenny are going to just sit on that bus the whole time. I'm not going to look at that. Meanwhile, when I spoke on that bus, what you got was Hamlet. Where do you hear that? Where do you hear anyone talk like me in this business? Who else is there? Josh, do you have anyone you could point to that could talk like Don Callis? You could even mention people from other companies.
There's nobody.
Maybe you want to mention people that I used to work for. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what your thoughts are. The reality is that I give people something that they've never had before. And that's exactly what's happening. You thought, oh, we're going to hear another world-class promo on the bus. Kenny's not going to get off the bus. You know what Kenny did? He broke a sign over the head of the Impact World Champion, and people went, oh my God, what's happening? Don't think you can predict what I'm going to do or what Kenny Omega is going to do. Don't think you can predict what's going to happen because you haven't seen any of it coming yet. Just sit back like the insects that you are and be entertained and be dazzled.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Michael, you're getting me upset, buddy. I don't know.
Michael, thank you for your questions and your time. Don't forget tonight, AEW Dynamite on TNT, Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela. Don, of course, will be in the corner of Kenny Omega tonight. Hard to Kill live on the 16th of January. Kenny Omega comes back to Impact Wrestling to team up with the Good Brothers to take on Rich Swann, Impact World Champion, and the Motor City Machine Guns, a dream match if there ever were one. Next up is Dean from the Body Slams and Dropkicks Hold on a second. Body Slams and Dropkicks podcast. Hey, Dean, how are you?
Hey, Josh, was that a bit of a mouthful for you?
It was.
Don, huge honour, sir. Just
Hey,
a
buddy.
question. Now, Kenny Omega has made his intentions clear about becoming the Impact World Champion. However, and you know this better than anyone, there is another world title in Impact, as you know, and it is currently held by Moose. So after Kenny Omega should become Impact World Champion, is that his next destination?
What, to beat Moose for the TNA title?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's something that a lot of the people that watch wrestling would enjoy to see. I mean, it's another one of those dream matches. And I guess, as I've said before, and I don't mean this to sound intellectually arrogant, but my dreams are a lot bigger than seeing two men in a ring wrestling each other. I don't care about that. I'll say this, Moose is perhaps the greatest pure athlete in wrestling today. You're talking about a guy who's 6'6", 300 pounds, who drop kicks like Jim Brunzell or Lance Storm. Would Kenny Omega like to wrestle Moose? I'd have to ask him. But Kenny Omega and Don Callis have bigger plans than the TNA World title. And I think actually wrestling Moose would be a good way to set an example that you can be the greatest athlete in pro wrestling, and Moose may well be, as I said. But the reality is Kenny Omega is a god of pro wrestling. He's Karl Gotch. So Kenny Omega is the man, and you can roll out anyone you want throughout history. The reality is that what makes Kenny Omega so unbeatable as AEW World Champion, we're going to hold that title for as long as we want. It's going to be years, maybe. The reality is we're operating on a higher level of consciousness, and that allows us to be in the moment, and that allows us to beat anyone. It doesn't hurt that Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler in the world today and the greatest wrestler of his generation. And the greatest, you can go back to Gotch and Hackenschmidt, I don't care. There's never been anyone like Kenny Omega, and there's never been anyone like Don Callis in terms of the way I think about this industry and the way I change the history of this industry. No one has changed history the way I have, even once. Now I've done it twice. Invisible Hand is a real thing. It's been here all along, and now you're actually seeing it come out of the shadows.
Indeed. Good luck with everything for the future, Dom.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, again from the Body Slams and Dropkicks podcast. We're going to get to some international questions in just a second. But Don, you mentioned people from other companies. You mentioned people that have done the jobs of being managers or advocates for professional wrestlers throughout history. And one name that I see on social media that's being put in the same sort of context as your name right now is Paul Heyman. Do you have anything to say as it relates to the similarities or the differences between Don Callis and Paul Heyman?
Well, I'm sure you're still in touch and still have a hotline to Stanford, Josh. I don't have any doubt about that. So that question doesn't surprise me. And this is the second time on this call someone has tried to pit me against someone that I respect, first Jericho and now Mr. Heyman. I'll say this, Paul Heyman, I worked with him in ECW. I portrayed a character on his show. And Paul, I have nothing but the best things to say about Paul. Paul gave me an opportunity and allowed me to succeed or fail based on my own merits. And as a quote unquote talent, I think that's all you can ultimately ask from anybody. Paul, I got to see Paul last year in Winnipeg at the airport. I'd gone to meet Lance Storm and I hadn't seen Paul in a long time. I got to give Paul a hug and I have so much gratefulness, I guess, gratitude towards Paul and what he did for my career. You're going to ask to compare. I mean, Paul is a manager in a wrestling context on a television show, and he does a wonderful job of that from all accounts. I've not seen it, but everyone tells me he's great, and I don't doubt it. I mean, Paul is a tremendous communicator and a brilliant guy. I'm not a manager. I'm not an advocate. I'm not an advisor. I'm an intellectual revolutionary. So Paul tried to change the business with ECW. And, I had the debate with Tommy Dreamer not so long ago about whether they were actually successful in doing that. But they're in the history books. But it's not in the history books in the same way that Kenny Omega and Don Callis are in the history books. So as much as I think Paul is a wonderful person and I have so much respect for him, you can't compare someone who plays a wrestling manager on a television show with someone who operates at a next level consciousness plane like I do. It's like comparing the Dalai Lama to just a wrestler. But Paul's a great guy.
Well, one day when we have more time, we can follow up on whether or not ECW was a success or not. But with that said, we're going to go to our international friends right now. We're going to start with David Dunn, who is in New Zealand. Hey, David, how are you today?
I am good. Josh, good morning from New Zealand. Thank you for taking the time to let me on the call today. Don, the first indication that we as viewers had any idea that something was happening between you and Kenny Omega was when you appeared behind the commentary desk. So I was just wondering, is that the role you'll be playing again tonight in Jacksonville, and moving forward, hard to kill future Kenny in-ring appearances? Will we see you, or I should say, will we hear you again on commentary for Kenny's match?
Well, I think operating on the level that the fans operate on, that might have been the first hint you had. If you were truly using your entire consciousness, you would understand that the first real hint of it came years and years ago. At the very least, the first obvious hint would have been when I would call Kenny's matches in New Japan. When I defended Kenny when he was attacked by Chris Jericho, you might have clued into something. But people have short memories. Here's a reality. I'm not going to blow my own horn because I really don't care about being a commentator. It's commentators are nothing. No offense, Josh. But my opinion is, look, why do I think that commentary is not anything that I'm concerned about? Well, people called me the next coming of Jesse Ventura when I did color commentary in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And what did it do for me? Zero. It was easy. It was easy. I could be half asleep and be the best color commentator in this business. Josh knows that. People hated Josh before he got to work with me. Then all of a sudden it's like, Josh Matthews is great. We love him with Don Callis. How can I take pride and get excited about something that's so incredibly easy for me? So when I don't do wrestling commentary, I narrate history. And will I do that again? Well, I'm writing it, so I might as well tell the story.
David, thank you. Very much appreciate your time and your questions.
I love people from New Zealand, just so you know. They say New Zealand is like Canada and Australia is like the US. So I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. Maybe David can, book a spoken word tour or something like that.
Maybe he can show you around while you're over there.
That'd be great.
Stephanie from Steel Chair Magazine. Stephanie, what's your question for Don?
Hi, Don. Bonjour, Don.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Comment tu vas?
Ça va bien. Et tu?
Moi, ça va.
Oui.
I'm fine. That's great. I wanted to ask you, it's quite the moment is really special. We had a year, I think we will all remember for a very long time. And Kenny's coming, of course, he's boosting everything, Twitter, social media, TV ratings, etc. Would you have preferred to do that and to launch that at a moment when people would have been in an arena and be able to enjoy a completely different experience coming from both of you? Because of course, I'm not sure we will be able to see live wrestling until a few months, and that's pretty sad in a way, because meeting Kenny and watching him wrestling on Impact live for sure should be something fantastic.
I think it is very interesting. We're living in challenging times. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's maybe the toughest question we've had yet. Wow, really excellent. I would say that Kenny and I don't notice these things. I would say that, c'est une très bonne question. I don't care. I don't care about the things that people care about. I don't care about ratings. I don't care about fan reactions. I don't care about how much the gate is. So to be perfectly honest, I barely noticed that we weren't in front of 20,000 people, because to me, what I'm doing, my audience is not the people in the seats. My audience is not the people who are watching this media call. My audience is the people that will read the history books. My audience is the people that will still be talking about Don Callis and Kenny Omega 50 years from now. That's my audience. And in the moment, I have an audience of one. As long as I please myself, I really don't care what anyone else's reaction is. That's the truth.
And thank you for the Adam Smith comment.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, Stephanie, thank you very much for your time this week here on Press Pass. Ross Foreman has let me know that we've already had a few registrants for the Hard to Kill celebration. So don't forget, guys, that is a limited engagement. Make sure you go to impactwrestling.com for all the details on the Hard to Kill celebration. Joel Torres is next. Hey, Joel, how are you?
Hey, guys, how are you? Merry Christmas from Puerto Rico. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me, guys?
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah, go ahead with your question, Joel.
Okay. Feliz Navidad. Okay, so after, acquiring Kenny Omega and bringing him to Impact Wrestling, does this have changed the plans that you guys have in Impact Wrestling all over 2021?
Someone very smart once answered a question like that by saying the plan is there is no plan. I'm not concerned with, listen, Impact Wrestling is something that I love and I take a lot of passion in. And the best gift that I can give Impact Wrestling is Kenny Omega and Don Callis allowing Impact Wrestling, allowing AEW, allowing all of the fans out there to be a part of what we're doing. Kudos to Impact Wrestling for recognizing, and Scott D'Amore is a very smart guy, recognizing that you got lightning in the bottle. And I am very happy to take the company that I love on that rocket ship ride with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. And it doesn't matter whether fans or officials truly understand the next level thinking that goes behind everything we do. Sometimes you just have to let it be. You just have to let it go and say, just let me be a part of history. And that's what I would encourage all of the wrestlers and all these companies. I would encourage all of the media. I would encourage all of the fans. Don't try to figure it out because you're not intellectually able to do that. You're not positioned. You're not thinking about the right things. I'm talking astrophysics and you're talking about getting a cheeseburger on the weekend. They're apples and oranges. Just enjoy the ride. That's what I would tell all of our fans.
Excellent. Thanks for your answer and happy holidays, guys.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks, Joel. Guys, we're coming up on just about 10 minutes to go here. We will say goodbye at the top of the hour. So we'll get through as many questions as we can. We still see a lot of hands raised. So let's just continue on. Next up is Carlos from Indie Pro Wrestling. Hey, Carlos, how are you?
Good and you, Josh. Thank you. So my question for you, Don, is I'm glad that you guys are doing shows out there in Nashville, Tennessee, but is there any plans on like maybe doing live events like at Daly's Plaza with the partnership with like AEW?
Well, there is no partnership. And I don't get into the garden variety hoi polloi of live events and seeing fans and those sorts of things. If in the course of changing the history of this industry, Kenny Omega and I appear in front of giant crowds, and I'm sure that'll probably happen because we're in demand all over the world, not just for wrestling, but for other things as well. And those are things that will unveil themselves as we move forward. Then maybe there'll be live events. I don't know. I literally, I don't worry about those things.
Okay.
It's a great question. I'm sure that the people who are responsible for those sorts of things, will want to see, our fans and things are going to want to see those things. For now, I think we're next level. We're moving forward. Kenny and I are going to do what we do regardless if there's one fan or 10,000 fans. It's not going to matter to us. So I love the fans. I think the fans are great. And I'm here to say, put down your cell phones, put down your laptops, pick up a book, because if you're prepping to figure out what Don Callis and Kenny Omega are doing, then don't look at the internet. Don't read wrestling newsletters. Don't talk to your friends. Read books.
Yeah, definitely agree. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Carlos, thank you. Appreciate your time. As we try to get through as many questions as we can, let's move on to Mike Gilbert from the Combat Republic. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? So you kind of just almost answered my question. I guess Carlos took mine, so I actually lowered my hand. But is there a plan to reintroduce fans into the live audience or either virtually or even in person?
I don't have a plan for that. But again, I don't get into the day-to-day drudgeries of that sort of stuff. I mean, I don't mean to dismiss it. I have a plan to reintroduce fans to themselves. I have a plan to say, focus on who you are. Don't focus on what Don Callis and Kenny Omega are on television. I plan to reintroduce fans to having a life beyond thinking about wrestling on the internet. Take a look at what we're doing on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Take a look at what happens every time Kenny Omega and I get in front of a red light, because you truly are witnessing history. They say that, I said this earlier, the winners write the history. Kenny Omega now, with what we have done, we can do whatever we want. We've got that kind of power. So I think that reintroduce yourselves to your families, reintroduce yourselves to things that are important, and stop focusing on the things that people like Josh and Ross and others tend to focus on, the day-to-day minutia of what they're told to think on television.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Next up, we're going to go to Kristen Ashley. Hey, Kristen, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you. Impact Women's Division is known to have some of the best talent in the entire world. I've been told that Kenny Omega has a pretty heavy hand in the AEW Women's Division direction and development. Will Kenny have any direct involvement in the Impact Women's Division as far as creative direction?
Well, I think you hit on a great point. The Knockouts division in Impact Wrestling is, I think, the best in the industry. I think that, from Gianna Perazzo all the way through the whole roster, it's top to bottom, just incredible athletes. So I think that's great. Kenny Omega and I don't impact anybody through creative decisions or heavy-handedness and that sort of, or what gets booked on the television show. We are impacting and shaping things based on what we're doing. We're showing people there's a different path to be relevant, not just in the wrestling industry, which is very small potatoes, but in life and in the world right now. So I think we are influencing all divisions in all wrestling companies right now. We are what people are talking about. People are trying to figure out, how do I get to that next level? How do I get to be as successful as Don Callis and Kenny Omega? And that's how we're shaping things. Not by telling people what to think, not by booking people into what to think. I'm past that. Think for yourselves. That's what I tell people right now in this business.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question.
All right, guys, we are down to our final 5 minutes. We've got 2 more questions to go. The first one is Brad Marcus joining us from Pro Wrestling Junkie. Brad, thanks for joining us. What's your question?
Oh, Don, thank you. And first off, happy and healthy New Year to you. Has this time executing your plan with Kenny, has this been fun for you, or is this more business?
I guess fun is a very trite word, and I don't mean that as a knock against your question, but what's fun for most people in this industry is to, go out and get over, to go out and pop a rating, to go out and be put in a position where they can talk about themselves. Kenny Omega and I don't care about that. We're free of all of those things. So fun, what's fun for me and Kenny Omega is very different than what's fun for regular people. What's fun for me is to spend time with Kenny, the 2 of us together, and the 2 of us to stand on top of that intellectual mountain and look down at everything we've accomplished and say, we did it our way. We did it differently than anyone else ever done. And then to think about what's next. And we don't revel in the past like many people do. Many people are obsessed with the regrets of the past and the worries of the future. Kenny and I are in the moment always.
All right. Well, thanks, Josh and Don. Have a happy and healthy New Year.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. We've got our final question coming up here. Hope it's a good one. We are going to go to James from that 90s Wrestling podcast. James, you have the pleasure of asking the final question this week on Press Pass.
Thank you very much. Saving the best to last. So a question for you, Don. You've upset the apple cart in Impact Wrestling. Kenny has made a point of, disrupting Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. Is there a fear there that one day on Dynamite, Kenny's hitting a promo then all of a sudden one rising superstar from Impact, such as Ace Austin, runs in and hits the throat on them, and the battle lines will be drawn. Is there a fear that one day we might see an invasion to AEW?
I don't know what fear is anymore, frankly, because when you face your own fears and you face those down, then you cease to care about what other people think. A lot of people are afraid of success. A lot of people are afraid of seizing power. A lot of people are afraid of, as you said, upsetting the apple cart. I call it breaking the paradigms of this business. There's a lot of sycophants in this business, a lot of yes men who have a vested interest in the status quo. Kenny Omega and Don Callis hate the status quo. Kenny Omega and Don Callis want to write our own narrative. We want to rewrite the history. So for us, really, fear, Ace Austin could run out tomorrow. He could attack Kenny Omega in a parking lot. We would deal with it because we're in the moment. And the thing that's exciting to me is that by being in the moment and operating from a higher plane of consciousness, what Kenny Omega and I have done, people call us all sorts of names: Screwjob, Golden Screwjob, Manipulative Carnage. The reality is that it's hard to kill on January 16th. You are going to, and I don't think people fully have even been able to comprehend it. If I told you 3 months ago you were going to see Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers for life, as they say, in a six-man tag in the main event against the Impact World Champion Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns, by God, revolutionary business, a great tag team, you would have said, Don's working. This is crazy. This could never happen. We'll never see this. We'll never see that any more than we'll see a tidal wave hit Fargo, North Dakota. Well, guess what? People are wearing rubber boots in Fargo because the world has changed. And if hard to kill, you're going to see the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers with Don Callis, by God, against Rich Swann, the Impact World Champion, and the Motor City Machine Guns. And you've got a little time to digest that. And then don't think we're resting on our laurels, because there's going to be more history that you're going to get to witness on Impact Wrestling, AEW. Doesn't matter. We're going to do it everywhere. And it's not going to stop.
Cool. Thank you very much, Don, and have a Merry Christmas to all of you and a Happy New Year.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. And don't forget, guys, AEW tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TNT. Kenny Omega, the AEW champion, goes one-on-one with Joey Janela. Joey Janela will have Sonny Kiss with him. Kenny Omega, of course, will have Don Callis in his corner. Don, I want to thank you.
Very excited. I'm just going to say I'm very excited. This Joey Janela person. I think this is great. I think it's great that Kenny Omega and Don Callis are giving opportunity. Because at the end of the day, I talked about it earlier, opportunity is important. Are you able to deal with that opportunity for Joey Janela? I guess we're going to find out tonight on Dynamite. I'm looking forward to it because I've not seen Joey Janela, heard a few things, but right now you're stepping in the ring with true greatness. You're stepping into the ring tonight, Joey Janela, with the god of pro wrestling, Kenny Omega, the same Kenny Omega who's going to be at Hard to Kill, the same Kenny Omega and Don Callis who have changed the wrestling industry. So stand by.
Just a few hours away from AEW Dynamite on TNT tonight. Don't forget, folks, Hard to Kill Celebration available right now. More information at impactwrestling.com. Don, thank you obviously for your time this afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you tonight.
Thanks, guys.